Hey, this DJ from PTA. Want to go over this trade today. Today being May 31st, closing out the month strong, and we definitely up here in the staff. Team did very well today. Want to go over a few trades. We put a lot out there in our Discord, as well as people that received our email this morning in reference to the pre-market plans and playbooks. Many of those plays didn't play out. They will still be on watch. Again, guys, just because we put it out there doesn't mean that it's going to actually move that day, but it is forming some similar pattern that's based on our strategies. So to give you an example, INDO was a oil shipper stock. Basically, it's an energy sector. We all know that the energy sector is moving right now due to the oil, crude prices, and so on and so forth. First, I want to go over the SPY just to kind of give you an idea what the overall logistics of the market was. And as I told you guys on previous episodes or previous videos, that I was looking for a flush. So I knew we was going to get a bounce. This bounce is pretty high. It's definitely bouncing above this area of 408. We did have a slight, red day. A lot of volume that came in today. Now, my biggest concern is it going to continue up? And like we talked about that 426 area and then pull back, or is it going to pull back and then hold maybe 390s? If we can get a pull back to maybe the 390s and then continue on, this might be a good indication that we're pulling out this recession. We're pulling out this pullback. This might be just a sell-off, and we might be trend reversing to the other side. So overall, that's what we're looking at. Now, that's, next month will really give us a good idea of what's going on. But overall, we're still in this downtrend. This was a very strong, week last week. I was telling a lot of guys that, the SPY finished very strong last week, but we may get a sell-off over the next couple of days into the beginning of June just to see the overall consensus of the market is just where it's at right now. So that's kind of give you an idea. Now, let's circle back to INDO. INDO today, massive amount of volume of around 5.3 million, but it didn't catch legs. So breaking it down into, let's say, a 5, what I was expecting was this big pullback and then a bounce reversal. It didn't do it. So it ended out the day red after it had a nice run up in pre-market. But again, we put it out there. I was looking at, some of the guys looking at over 20. Once it did its nice pullback, I was looking for about a 1901 entry, just never got it. So I just kind of knew it was going to fade for the rest of the day. And it never really got back up there because I was looking for an entry somewhere up here. But we just didn't get it. So that was one that just didn't play out the way we did. When you don't see the pattern you're looking for, you sit on your hands. The next stock was AMC. Now, AMC has been in talks just because of the massive amount of short selling that's going on in this stock. I think the short selling number now is at like 27%. It's higher than it was on the last squeeze that it did previously last year. So this is one of those things where, people are really paying an eye on this. One of the key things is that it kind of broke out of the zone. So let me kind of show you this on the daily. You had this daily wash right here. And when it broke out of this, coming in on the 26th, after retesting, a lot of people are getting really starting to get excited about this. We don't know if this is going to be the turnaround. We're not really sure. It did hit an all-time low of 970 for this year. But again, it's one of those things that, we may get a nice little rally back up to the 25s. Just so that it can squeeze out or whatever. But based on the numbers, 20, literally about 1920, so about right here is probably where the squeeze will begin. Right there around $19.84, $20 is probably where it can get a nice squeeze, because after that did this consolidation, ran up and then slammed back down, that's when it started to get real heavy in shorts. And this right here, this move right here from was it March 4th? Let me get the actual dates for you. Yeah, so March 14th, 15th, nice little rally up to the highs, which was a $20 move up until March 29th. That little short rally is where a lot of shorts re-entered in the trade, and from there they pulled it down from March 29th all the way back down to a low of 970 on May 12th. So if you look at that rally, didn't really break down much further from its previous low. So you're talking about a $3 difference, massive amount of volume, but just didn't really get it down low, and now it's starting to reverse. And then this little pop and then this hole here is what got people very interested, because basically getting in here, risk into 970 is about a 70-cent risk. So you can load up pretty heavy there around that 970 area, and now you're already back up to 16. So this was a good play going up. What I would like to see is see it pull back and then maybe go for the $19-20 range. We may be introduced into a squeeze at that point in time, but today it just didn't move. Didn't do the play that I thought. Went up to the 1664, pulled back, did a nice little bounce, and then people joined, and it's still fading. So again, it's one of those things that when it comes down to the actual trade, you may see something in the short term, but you definitely want to keep your bias on the long term. Right now, it's breaking out of a channel. So honestly, I would be looking at this as something that, over the next couple of days, keep an eye on it around that 20 area, because if it gets above that area with some volume, we can get a nice squeeze from this area up, at least to 34. And then, just how it is and how the market is right now, everyone's looking for that squeeze play. And this being a real known name and everybody's looking at it, it can really go bananas really fast. So that's something that why we put it out there to say, hey, listen, keep an eye on this, because this may be something you want to look at. Now, the next stop I want to go over is CNCE. Just something we was looking at last week. Pharmaceuticals still up. Remember, guys, I lost on a couple days ago. I lost on it, something small, but it's just not holding. But when I see this and it's still green every day, that's a good sign that a squeeze may be coming, may be imminent, just because of the way the market has been playing out. So we had a nice little drop, and then we had this pullback after hours. So I want to see if it's going to climb back up and see what it's going to do. May have legs, but definitely keep that one on watch as a pharmaceutical. So again, monkeypox being in play, so they might push it up with a monkeypox play or some type of PR on that one as well. Going over to the next stock, INDO. So INDO was an oil shipper. It did the same exact thing as what we thought with the other ones, just didn't get that play. So what happened in this one, I think everyone was eyes on HUSA, which we're going to go over shortly, but it was breaking out of a zone. So this breakout coming into this day on the 27th gave people an edge, and then we get a massive amount of volume coming in out for that. So my idea thought is that this stock, with its low float, 7.6 million shares outstanding, this stock can get legs and move as well. Now, what zones are we looking at? Definitely, as you can see in the past, this stock, when it gets some legs, you looking at massive volume on the upside. I mean, it got as high as 86.99. So, buying it at 16 right now with a push of full retracement back to 86 will be a significant move for the stock. Can it do it? Don't know. Crude oil was getting kind of weak today, so I'm not really sure. I'm not really that confident to see, but I do think overall, the overall market is going to be bearish. So, any type of play that can show something of any power, you guarantee that people are going to be looking at it. People are going to be jumping all over it, so on and so forth. One of the plays that we missed today, or at least I missed, did have a few members in our Discord that did bank on it, was MULN. Had some really good volume, 312 million in volume, compared to the previous day of 37. Now, the thing about this company is it was really pattern driven. So you can kind of look at the chart and see that, it bust out this zone. So you had a lot of people underwater. The biggest concern that I had about it was the price action. You just kind of faded. You had this massive amount of price action early in the morning. Then over a course of the day, it just took off. It almost rotated its float. Now this stock has a massive float, 332 million. So I wasn't looking for a significant move. I don't really play stocks with that type of move, shares outstanding, because you tend not to get that massive move. I mean, just from open to close, you're looking at, 40, 50 cent move, 30, 40 cent move. So it wasn't something massive, but you definitely could have loaded in with really tight risk, 4 or 5 cent risk, and let it rip. So the way I would have played it, again, go out to your higher time frames, look at your pullbacks. So honestly, I probably would have got in probably off this 15, because that's when it looks like it broke. So right here is where, I would have looked at that. And then you see the bounce, pull back, bounce. You got your short, you got your higher lows, swing lows here. So, then you zero in to get it tighter. And I would have just looked at it from that point of view. I would have wait for the bounce, to pull back, and then when it started to hold, start loading in right here. So let's take a look at that on the 1 minute and see what that actual price action was. Let's see something here. So again, you see how the price action was a bit choppy, but I probably would have loaded in somewhere right here, 131 with a risk to 127. Again, guys, this is one of them stocks, like I said, it just had a lot of, choppy volume. That's why I said I knew I wouldn't have played it. I wouldn't have seen it, wouldn't have popped up on my list. But, we do play stuff that's momentum. So when it pops up, we do let other members and people know about that particular play. But nothing crazy. It was just a nice little squeeze move. And again, that's probably where I would have played it at. That's a good 24 cent with a 4 or 5 cent risk. Again, that's one of those things, depending on your trading style. If that matches, it matches. For me personally and my client, I just can't play those type of trades. The next trade was the one I actually played on, HUSA, another oiler. So it was HUSA, INDO were the ones that everyone was looking at. And the reason being, last time it ran, it did a massive move up to the upside, 1661. And you figure it was, in the twos just 2 days prior. So, with crude oil being the way it is and everything like that, you had this nice little breakout. Everybody started adding into the stock these 2 days off of the pullback. The thing about this is that it was crowded, because everyone was looking at it, because everyone is trying to find that play. They're trying to get that squeeze. I mean, we had 74 million volume today, and you got to remember that this only has a 9 million float. So when you factor in, 74 million, 9 million float, it rotated its float, 8 times. That means a lot of people are involved. So honestly, this is probably something I would look at over the next couple of days as well, because it's a good squeeze candidate. It's a lot of people that are trapped in this stock that, decided to jump in and so on and so forth, and then they slammed it. So going back, I played it off the 15 price action. Now, the reason for that is because of how it was moving. So I did notice the higher lows on the higher time frame, but I end up getting in a little early. So the ideal way would have been from here, getting it in about right there, first thing in the morning. I didn't see it. At least I don't like to trade the first 5 minutes. So right there would have been your ideal spot. Got in right here. Let me see what that price is. Probably about right there, which would have been about 504, 30-cent risk. It ripped, came back. You would have added there, came back, added there, and go for the rip. So because I missed that one, it ended up pulling up. I ended up catching this one. So when it pulled up, I got in right at 524. So my entry was right there. Yep, 523, 524. We'll just put 524. So once I seen it do this and held over the break, it started to bounce, bounce, bounce. My wrist was back here. So my wrist was down at 5. So it started to bounce, 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 boom, bounce, bounce, bounce. And then it just got into zombie hours. So on zombie hours between 10:30 to right around 11, I want to say it was 11:30, something like that. By that time, I typically in and out of a trade. And this one just kept bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. Now, when you look at this from a higher standpoint, this is where, the picture looks a little different. So when you get in here, you pull back and it's still holding, pull back and it's still holding. That's a good indication you need to hold the stock. Now, what I failed to do was pay attention to the higher lows in the higher time frame. So when it started to pull up, and then it got this yank back, this is where you step out and go into a higher time frame. From that higher time frame, I would have seen that it was still making higher lows. If you go all the way back out to the hour, you can really see it there because it still was creating higher lows from my point. So the lowest point here was 505 on the pullback. But again, you got to look at the higher time frames to kind of see which way the stock is going. So when you start to develop and you look at the stock from a longer standpoint and you see it's holding, I see, okay, it's holding 505. Then it pulled back and it hold 514. Hey, it's only a matter of time it's going to rip. And it did. So unfortunately, I took off shares right here in the break. This is pre-market high. Now, to put this in perspective, let me take these lines off because this is where, the key areas were. Go back to the daily. You would have looked at this and seen that about right here, 548, we always round to the nearest whole number. So 548 right there was a critical area. That was resistance. I'm going to paint that in purple. So that was resistance right there at 546. As I always tell you guys, I always like to do whole numbers. So 550 was the area to me. Then you had this pullback, pop, whatever. So, I'm looking at, the 580s. I'm looking at this area. So like you can see that it bounced, pulled. So you know that this right here is an area as well. So we'll make that 670. And then I'm going to paint that one purple as well. So when I started looking at all my key areas, like this being previous month high, this being previous week high, we already cleared that. Previous month high at 578, like 580. I got previous month high and a zone where it broke down from so close together that was a area of interest. So my concern was, okay, is it going to pop and slam right there or whatever? So I started to pay attention to the price action. Let's break this down to a 1 minute. Now it starts to look a little clearer to you. So when you look at it, now you can see that this is right in the area that it's stuffed. Well, why did it stuff? That's based off the daily. So people who got in here got tapped out really quick. And then when they did this number, they tapped them out. So when I look at a stock and I'm looking at the areas, I'm thinking about all those different things. Where is it going into what price zones is it going into? So when I drew my line here early in the morning, and then base that off of the 1 minute, you can see that that's right where it broke out from. When it broke out from there, it went straight into that zone, that supply zone, and then pulled back. So that's when I started to get interested in it. I said, okay, you can pull back out of that zone, then I know you want to go back and retest it. So if you hold, then I'm going to go in and place a trade. So right here is where it got interesting, because we had this nice little pullback here. So we go down here. Let me see something here. Going down to the 1 minute, you can really see the price action. So you got this break up to the zone. So some people probably played it from 5s, took some off at 560s, pulled back, and then when it broke out of the zone again, add, pull back, and then it kind of did a sideways price action. And then right here, maybe you can see it on the 5. Yeah, you can. Right there on the 5 minute, you had a nice little pullback. Now this is one of those pullbacks that you probably have to draw off of the 1, just because of the price action. So it was right here. You see how it pulled and it just bounced, boom, hit it, came back, bounced, and then it just ripped. So when it ripped, pulled back, and did a sideways price action. Now that's what's key, is that you got to understand what zone or where you're at in the actual stock. So when I look at this, this is how I'm looking at it. I'm seeing that this stock just broke out of a zone, which is basically, it's breaking out of the pattern. It's breaking out. It's breaking the other way. So as it broke the other way, okay, a lot of times what people did, they saw this big rip. They want to wait for it to come, pull back. This might have been a moving average right here, pull back, and then let it rip. I personally, I end up riding the wave. So what ended up happening is when the stock pulled back and then ripped into here, I took off. I took my shares off right here in this area. So when it pulled back and then ripped again, it was like, oh crap, because that move right there was literally the move I was looking for. There go my dollar move, because you got to remember, I got in at 524. So you're talking about like somewhere here. That would have been a nice move. And the interesting part, it never hit my wrist. So again, you want to stay in the trade till you assume your risk. We all do it as traders, so on and so forth. But I was looking at the price action. I did not like this pullback right here. And when it did this, that's what just said, hey, you know what? When it pull up, I'm going to just take profit in the zone, because I'm thinking it was going to stuff again like it did here, but it didn't. It actually pulled back, did a nice pattern on that right there. I mean, this is picture perfect. This is exactly what you're looking for. That's exactly the flag that you're looking for in that pattern. And then it just ripped, and it ripped hard. I mean, basically it was clearing out the shorts here, here, and here before it moved higher. And then, it started to get parabolic, and then it started doing some silly stuff after that. I call it silly stuff because that's when the stock's kind of just trying to figure it out. And then this is what got people interested, because it did another pullback. So let's go back to the 5. This is your pullback here. And let me do this, because that's actually pretty sloppy. Let's go back to the 1. Let's see something here. So we had a nice little pull back. Some people joined there, and it just didn't hold. So even if they got into 580s, got out at 6, they did okay. And then after that, it just kept doing the same thing. But if you look at the pattern, it started to, break, and then came back and test. and then it broke down. So that was pretty much that trade. Am I happy about the trade? Of course not. I could have done a lot better. Could have been more patient with the trade. Would have been a monstrous day, but we just didn't get the price action that we wanted at the time that we want. Now, what's interesting enough is the stock ended up moving right after the 11:30 area. So by that time, I had took my profit, was looking at other things, and then watch it go to 6:15. So that really sucked. But you live and learn. But that's basically visualizing the pattern. Sticking to your strategy is very critical. So that's one of those things that you definitely want to make sure that you're sticking to your risk, sticking to the area and zone that you originally played, and then for every dip, definitely buy into those dips if it holds. So gang, if you have any questions, concerns, definitely leave it in the Discord or even drop it in a comment. If you like what you learned from this video, click the like button, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of these videos and content. And guys, like I tell everyone in the Discord and all the new traders out there, stay studying and stay focused.